as well.
Good.
And hopefully everything will work. So let me just see what. So I think the active speaker will come up. So I can just see your. Yeah. Okay, cool. Getting people joining. Just give us 1 minute, guys. Share this. Hi, Sally. Bollocks, what's that? Right, sorry guys. Hi, Jackie. Just give us 1 sec. I'm just okay, so that's sharing to the group. So right. Okay, so I need to, how do I stop the sound on just Facebook? That's going to be interesting. Oh, have I done that? Ronnie, do you know
Yes.
how, because I'm obviously speaking to you in Zoom, but then obviously I can hear myself now through Facebook. Do you know?
I muted on. If you're opening it on your browser, just mute the mute the tab.
Yeah, I've got it. I've got it.
Mute the tab.
Okay, guys. Hi, Matar. Hi, everyone. I think everyone can hear me okay. You'll be able to see me and Ronnie. I'm going to mute myself a little bit, and I'll just unmute myself when necessary. Please don't send me private messages or anything like that at the moment, because I'll be perfectly honest, I can't deal with it. Because I don't know what's going on, because I'm streaming from Zoom into Facebook, and Facebook's not good at life. I'm joined today with by Ronnie, who's out in Lebanon. So, and the reason why we're doing this is because recently Ronnie put a post in my group, and I should imagine other places as well. And he'd written a book, like an ebook, about pronouns. Now, Ronnie's also an IEMT trainer. He trained with Andy Austin quite fairly recently, wasn't it? I think it was
last year, mid last year.
Yeah, so last year he trained to be a trainer. So just before we sort of get into this kind of this pronoun work, can you give people just a bit about your background with therapy, IEMT, and what you're using IEMT for as well?
So I've been in therapy, coaching, change work since 2013. Sorry. And I used to use NLP, hypnosis, other stuff. And then I got to Andy's work, and I started discovering how simple it is, at the same time how effective it is. It's more or less surgical, like it pinpoints on specific things.
Yes.
And I started using IEMT after watching the DVD set, and then I decided to go ahead and learn it with Andy. So I've used it with around 150 to 100 people so far. And the results have been really astounding on many different levels. But one of the challenges that I faced after I took the training and as I prepared my first IEMT training was the identity bit, where there weren't lots of examples and stories, because this is what we share with clients when we're telling them what we're going to do with the identity shifts. So I started looking up on forums, maybe some discussions I had with my clients, and writing them up to be able to practice what's going on there. And after that, just compiled them in a small workbook and shared it with Andy, and he posted it on the website, and here it is right now. So
cool.
that's in a nutshell.
If you guys, if you haven't downloaded the workbook of that, we will put the link, or Ronnie, if you actually want to put the link in the comments as well, so people can get that. And I know that, well, for myself, because I first trained in IEMT in, I don't know, so it was a long time ago, but I did the trainer's training in 2013. Am I still on? Have I muted myself? People can hear me, can't they? You can hear me, Ronnie, can't you?
Yeah.
Excellent. As you can tell, I'm not really a fan of technology. And so I found the identity stuff quite challenging, and I didn't like it, to be honest, and I didn't really understand it. And I had to go away and really sort of focus on it and learn it. And I now, realize how powerful it is. And on the practitioner training that I do, I always do like the I, me, self, you setup from within a problem that the person has. And I like to really sort of narrow it down. So say somebody has a problem at work. I like to get, okay, so you have a problem at work. At what point? Is it in meetings? Is it dealing with superiors? And I then do an I, me, self, you reference from there. I do, we could go on about this for hours. We're not going to, but I don't do the simple and the complex on the I, me, self, you. I just go straight into the complex of that. I don't see any reason for doing simple patterns. I go straight into complex patterns. So, and because I class in the other stuff, in the kinesthetics, I do the opening demonstration. I class that as the simple pattern. So basically, get the submodality shifts, and I class all that as the simple pattern. And then the complex pattern is when you're going after the imprints and allowing the imprints to flow and move and change through time and space. I still can't see the point of having a simple and complex where you're trying to hold the memory or you're not holding the memory and letting it flow. And I really found when I was teaching it, people like, well, when do you go between one and the other? And I was like, I don't know, to be honest. So let's sort of simplify it. Because if I don't know something, I felt a bit of a fraud for teaching it, to be honest, because that's not what I do in my sessions. So I've really kind of streamlined how I teach it, because the most important thing is that when people leave my trainings, I want them to know what they're doing so they can use it. And that's why I wanted to do this interview with yourself today, because I saw that, you did this, this workbook using these different case studies. And I thought it'd be really good just to go through, we're going to go through some of these case studies just to show this can basically be on people's intake forms and also in conversation in the actual session, can't it?
Yes,
excellent.
Exactly.
So what we really want to do today is we're going to go through 3 of these case studies just to show basically how primarily you, because this is going to waiting for your video signal. Basically how you would sort of analyze these, and then more importantly, how we'd actually use them in client work.
Okay.
Sound good?
Yes, let's
right.
go.
Can I? Okay, here we go. I'll let you go to it.
So the first thing is that in Andy's training, he mentioned about clean language and how he took these concepts from David Grove. And in that training where he was doing with David Grove, Dave mentioned these different identity markers like the I, the me, the self, and the you. But in that training, David mentioned like if somebody is saying I think this is, etc., he would take each and every single I on its own. And he experimented with that and just chose to focus on what's happening actually in the conversation. And other approaches were the development of David Grove's work, which was clean language and clean spaces. And we have also mental space psychology, social panoramas, and the wholeness work. Mental space psychology and social panoramas are by Lucas Turks, and the wholeness process is by Connie Ray Andreas. Clean spaces and clean language is by James Lowley, Penny Tompkins, and Marianne Way. So they take the identity aspects of this in different ways, like the parents, like in the wholeness process, if somebody's having a problem, when I think I, where is I, and where is the I that's aware of this? Mental space psychology is more of the representations of things around. So it's present in different places. In IEMT, though, it's more of how it's present linguistically and how people express it. And if we're gonna just stick to the I, me, self, and you, it's more of the I, the main identity, the person, the main operating system, if we're gonna call it. Me is what I receive from external sources, like the receptacle. Self is how I express I to the external world, and you, which is supposedly external. The people tend to jump to you when they're expressing a belief or a certain thing. So let's jump to the first case.
Okay. Next slide, please. There we go.
So case one, feeling dreadful. Anyone else have this feeling? This was from a forum. It can hit me randomly. It feels almost a bit like existential anxiety, almost feeling anxious for no reason at all. You just feel in your stomach, a pit in your stomach, and that you are not like yourself. Something is wrong. My mood gets affected badly. I'll be totally cut off. And in that horrible thought space, which pulls me in, I'll be in my head and ruminating constantly. So in here, we can notice there's the you, where the person is trying to connect with the other person and telling them how generally people might feel, which might be their actual experience, or they're just trying to relate to what's going on out there. They want people to understand, which could get us into the PTSD model and the linchpin, like wanting other people to understand. But mainly, if we're going to focus on you, we can choose the you that has the pit and the stomach. Where's that you? How old is that you? What's happening around that you? And we can move forward to yourself, which is the other form of self, like external self, probably in this one. My mood gets affected badly. I'll be totally cut off in that horrible thought space, and which pulls me in. So there's the I and the me in this place. That's being me, that's being pulled in, and I that's in the horrible space. I'll be in my head and ruminating constantly. So there's no like evident kinesthetic that's present, like somebody's feeling something, but there's the personification of existential anxiety that it is doing this to me, which is a bit more advanced, but we can work with like the ruminating constantly. Okay, when you're ruminating constantly, is there a feeling associated with that? How strong is it over time? How familiar when's the first time? Before dealing with any of the identity markers that are present there.
Yeah, I think I just want to chip in there, just say something that's really important, what you said there, that you do need to sort of deal with the kinesthetic feelings before you go into identity work. So if we were reading through this and it says anyone else had this feeling, that could straight away be a kinesthetic representation. True. So this feeling that you have, how strong is it? How familiar? When's the first time you remember feeling this way? And then go into obviously the imprints and whatever comes out of that. And then you go into the, and obviously for those who don't know, that's the straight line patterns. And then when we go into the identity, is obviously it's the lazy ape based patterns. So you would go through this.
And also there's the it, which is the most loaded word in the English language, could mean anything. And it means the feeling in this specific case. So that could be one of the starting points also.
It feels like a bit like existential anxiety. So it could be, that could just be the precursor to the feeling. Anyone else had this feeling, it can hit me randomly. And that, if you want to take it even further, can almost go into like metaphors of movement.
Exactly.
It's something actually hitting you. How is it hitting you? Where is it hitting? You know, that's not
what's that like?
People, but absolutely. So for other people who know different models, this is where IEMT works brilliantly because it can bring different parts and different therapies kind of together with this.
Exactly, and there's lots of personification, objectification of what's going on around there, and it's just to notice where to start. And after pointing this out, we can explain to the client like 2 examples of I hate myself, I hate self, I hate self is being hated, draw a couple of examples around that, and then show the different identity markers that are present here, and ask them which one of these do they consider something that needs calibration, shifting, changing, if any, because some people, that's their identity. It's up to them to choose if they want to change something about it or not.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important because some people like the way that they feel and react, and they don't want to change it. There are certain parts of it that they want to change, and I think, you know, if a client had said this or put this to me, my mood gets affected badly. in a horrible thought space, which pulls me in. Again, that could go into metaphors of movement. So when pulls me in, and that feeling of being pulled in, how strong is that feeling? How familiar? And when's the first time? And this me that's being pulled in, where is me located in the body, or where is it physically, being? How old and what's going on around? And then when you're doing that kind of elicitation, do you also say, and when's the first time you can remember being this way?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
It could be done, but it's not necessarily, because it's not always associated with a memory.
Yeah.
It's an identity imprint, which could be a concept. When we're doing the kinesthetic stuff, memories are very essential. But when we're talking about identity imprints, it could be something very, very occurrent. Like I was working with a client who suffered abuse for a long period. And the main thing in the conversation was, he scares me. He's so much bigger than me.
Yeah.
And then after that, so when you say me, how old is that me? And what's happening around that me? And whereabouts is that me? And it turned around to be a very young age. And then after we did the scared part, we did the identity. And that was the most significant shift that this client had in their experience.
Brilliant. Brilliant. So I hope people are sort of following along with what we're sort of talking about here. So essentially, you get this, like I said, this could be what a client says. It could be what a client puts in their pre-form of why they're coming to see you. I think these things you've taken from forums, haven't you? Just different.
Some of them are from forums. Some of them are like rephrased from client sessions that I've had, or observations I've seen in other client sessions, online on YouTube, etc. And one of the things that got me also into this is in Lebanon. In one conversation, we jump sometimes from English to Arabic to French. So it's trilingual. And the pronouns are very, very different in the three languages. So just to practice it enough in the main language that this was created in English, this was also another reason for creating the work, to be able to shift it to other languages and explore what happens there.
I always find it quite interesting in London, because obviously it's a very multicultural place. And, we have people from literally all over the world. And when you're on the bus or on the tube, you'll hear people arguing in their native language, but they usually come to English to swear. English swear words are just the best, But bastard, just go back to. It's quite interesting how they come into like different things.
Exactly.
So I think basically what we're really saying here, you go through it and you analyze it, and you're really looking for like the I, me, self, you references. Of course, if you're doing the more advanced stuff as well, you're looking for different pronouns as well, like he, she, they, them, their.
Obviously.
Yeah, and it as well. And also we're looking
nicknames, titles.
Nicknames, labels, all these kinds of things. And also with the people as well. So because obviously you can change your relationship, your internal relationship with somebody else by literally having the
mother.
Mother, father, boss, ex-partner. That's always a.
And this is why I mentioned social panoramas and Lucas Dirks' work, because that's where the influence came of, where people organize their the people they care about, the people that they think about, the people that are in or out of their lives, in their mental space.
Absolutely. So the structure that we do this, you go through, you analyze, and you're looking for, first of all, the kinesthetic, so the feelings. And with a feeling, that's what we rate out of 10. We want to get to a memory imprint. So I hope everyone really understands that. And then we do up to 4 imprints. That's certainly how I was taught. So we do up to 4 imprints. Then we look at the identity stuff. So the me, the I, the self, you. So I just want to make it really clear with people. We don't do an I, me, self, you reference
with the client.
From this. Yeah, the I, me, self, you reference is really a training tool. And as you get more familiar with IEMT, you can progress your skills and look at more generalized concepts and look at texts like this, and then start to use these different tools, the I, me's and the selves and the user and the other things as well. And then obviously you then just pick out the most poignant parts, check with that client if this is something which they want to change. Now, I'm going to try doing it both ways, because I do it where the I, me, the self, you, because obviously when you get in age, I sort of try to get them back to that age. And I say it's not a particular memory, it's just a way of being, and this tends to be over a period of time as well. But I'm going to try it both ways, where basically you don't have to go back, you just hold the concept of it, which is quite interesting. Anything else you would like to add on this?
I think there's a question from Sally in the chat, which
right,
is
okay,
talking.
sorry, I don't know what's going on with my life. Do we have a question? What's the
So can you talk a bit more about the word it as this identity? It's a pronoun jump, and it could represent anything. It could represent a feeling, it could represent a situation, it could represent a group of people. It depends on, like, when I see it or when I'm in it, it really depends. So in that part, understanding metaphors of movement, understanding the other stuff could help in identifying what's that like, because it is very general. But for example, if somebody has a challenge in something like public speaking, it bothers me. And when you say it, whereabouts is it, and how old is it, and what's happening around it? And sometimes there is a specific, like, generalized group of people that are grouped in it. And if you do the identity algorithm, which is the lazy 8 or the infinity, that reorganizes itself, and suddenly a specific identity shift might pop up, not always. And then you can work with that if it's of any significance with the person. But it's more of moving from a general representation or general trigger and going to a more specific thing to deal with. That's my experience so far, at least.
And let me ask you, oh, yeah, there are comments, aren't there? Let me ask you as well, Roni. Once you've done the shift with somebody, what do you then do? How do you sort of calibrate? What do you then do once you've done the lazy 8 with someone?
So, and now what happens could be one of the questions, or what do you notice? Which is the main thing. Some people might say this specific pronoun moved in location. It could have grown up in age, or nothing could have happened. But it's like they're disconnected from it. It's fuzzy, or any of the other things that happen actually with the kinesthetic. Because we don't actually understand all our emotions. We don't have a name for all of our emotions. So it's more of then using psychoeducation. Okay, so what do you notice? What's happening here? Okay, do you want to continue doing something about this? Or how do we go from here? So it's just checking in with the client of what's going on.
Yeah. And would you ever repeat the lazy 8 on
Sure.
that identity? Yeah.
Because some people, they grow up to a certain age. Okay, so what's that like? Or what do you notice about that age? Okay, it's the emotion is decreased, but it's not where I want to be. Okay, and then I do it again. And I think here the distinction in the new IEMT trainings is a complex pattern is just about calibrating when there's a blip and just moving around with the blip. It's not that the difference is it's the same. And the simple and complex is just calibrating to any blips, which are a bit challenging online, but face to face, they're more observable.
Yeah, essentially, when I found this, so when I say with people, when you're doing, this kind of work, well, I always say when you're doing the I, me, self, you setup, you do it 6 times either way. That's fine, for within a specific situation. When you're doing the other pronouns and work like this, you want to basically be doing it until it just runs smooth. And then just to reverse the direction. Because if you're trying to do it it's doing it hard enough doing it in person to the actual blips in person. So doing it online, I think causes more problems. So I just literally do it until it runs smooth, basically.
Yesterday, I was working with a client, and when we started, the age marker for the thing that we're working on was 5. We repeated it, I guess, twice. And the client reached 18. What do you notice? Actually, this is fun. This is playful. I want to keep that. I'm like, fine, go ahead.
Do you know what? I've had that myself. I've had, but I want to be this, and I was like, okay, let's not touch it.
Which is contextual, because sometimes we want to be playful, we want to be fun, we want to be, which is not our current age, but something that is we connect with in certain contextual situations.
Cool. Shall we move on to the next case study?
Go ahead.
People, if they've got other questions, can always ask them later as well. That's cool. So, over to you.
like a roller coaster. You know, life, it's like a roller coaster ride. You'll be okay for a second, and the next thing you know, I'm ready to throw up. I cannot turn off my mind. It is not fun. You are not alone. This is all I want to hear when this happens to me. But it seems less likely to happen the more I go through this, you know? So there's a bunch of things happening here. It's more of one thing, the other person to connect with the experience, with starting with, you know, finishing with, you know. There is the metaphor. It's like a roller coaster, and there's the it. You'll be okay for a second, and next thing, I'm ready to throw up, which is a distinction of like, it seems like they're observing somebody. I hear it's a bit diagnosing, but if it's just reading from this, you'll be okay, but then I'm throwing up. So it's more of two different identities happening simultaneously. So we could check with here, like with the you and the I, and the next thing you notice. So it's more probably somebody else noticing their behavior. I cannot turn off my mind. It is not fun. You are not alone. This is all I want to hear. But it seems like less likely to happen the more I go through this. So emotions. The emotions around here. So no significant emotion. That's what we can ask the whole thing. Is there a feeling associated to this? On a scale of 1 to 10, how strong is it? How familiar, etc., which could be a starting point. And when I cannot turn off my mind, is there a feeling associated with that? Which could kind of has some aspects of jumping around, like the chaining, which is present in the 3 pillars. Like something start, I cannot turn it off, and then I want it to stop. Which we could check the chain over here. It's not necessarily the 3 pillars, but what chain of emotion is moving from one to the other.
And I suppose as well, because if somebody wants to throw up, there's probably going to be a feeling before that as well. So, you know, so that could be something to
when the you is not okay anymore, I want to throw up, which is something worth working on, exploring and discovering that.
I like that. Well done. Sorry, carry on.
That's it. So it's just like if they don't download the workbook, it's like you, and then there's the it, and there's the other you, and then there's the following you. So I is throwing up, you is not okay, I cannot turn off mind, it not fun, you is not alone, and I wants to hear, which could be, it's kind of, if we're jumping here to a pattern of chronicity, which is a stage of a 3-stage app reaction, because I want something and you should do it, which is one of the things I want to be working on. Like the next workbook would be on patterns of chronicity in texts, which is also interesting to explore.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's it.
Does anyone have any questions in regards to that at all? So again, once again, we take the whole text, we're looking to see if there's any obvious emotions and to also what might be an emotion as well. We then work with those emotions using complex kinesthetic patterns. We then come back to look at the different identities, which is a more conceptual, so there's no rating of emotion, anything like that. Questions that we ask are, where's it located? How old is it? And what's going on around? And so when we say what's going on around, you're generally going to be getting things like noise, confusion, disruption, or even positive things like
specific
calm,
events.
joyful, you know, so sometimes it takes people to a specific memory or to a specific thing, you know, which can happen. And then literally we're just holding that. So keep thinking about that. Now, the way that I've done it in the past, I tried to get them to go to the first time they can remember being this way and holding on to it, or you can just literally just get them to hold on to this concept. And I think
I'm not sure if my connection froze or yours. I think Matt's connection froze here. So one thing to think of when doing all of this is a question that you can ask. So you're telling me all this, what's really the problem? and what do you want from me? And by asking these questions, the client might come up with a more specific kinesthetic, or the client might be more specific about what they're experiencing in that. All right, I think Matt's connection disconnected. Gonna share the presentation from my side. 1 second. Until Matt comes back. So here's the last case, which is don't look up. I know the clickbait titles make me feel, make me more worried than I should be, but there's going to be an asteroid passing Earth on the 27th of December, and now I'm frightened. It really makes me feel helpless when I think about it. It's the things like this that keep you on edge that really bother me. I mean, when are we going to be more understanding of what triggers are? So thinking about this, it's more of understanding the emotions, which could be helpless, frightened. And if we're thinking of the identity jumps, I know the clickbait titles make me worried, more worried than I should be, which is the being passive about what's being done here. So the clickbait is doing something, but there's going to be an asteroid passing on Earth, passing Earth on the 27th of December, and now I'm frightened. So we can work with frightened. On a scale out of 10, how strong is it? How familiar? And then we can do the I, which is when you think I, where is I? How old is I? What's happening around I? Then we can shift to the it that's present here, which makes me, which we can also check me, where is me? That is helpless. It's things like this that keep you on edge. Matt's back. Hey, Matt.
Hi. Sorry, my internet is.
No worries. I'm gonna stop sharing so you can reshare from your
Oh,
side.
okay. Cool. Let's. Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm just.
Happens.
Yeah. It's meant to be you with the internet issues, not myself.
Exactly.
All right. Okay. So it's on to the third case study. Here we go.
Yes. So that really bothered me. So we're down to that. When you think me, where is me? What's happening around me? How old is me, etc. Bothered, we can deal with this kinesthetic over there. I mean, when are we, which is also a identity jump over here, going to be more understanding of what triggers are. So it's being part of a collective here, which could be represented in whatever which way for the person. But to explore a bit more that, I think in the advanced training, more about personifications, more about these kinds of things, but practice the actual practitioner stuff with at least 50 to 60 people in order to manage them. And then the advanced stuff, whenever you choose to do that, it becomes more easy to learn, grasp, practice.
Yeah, people always say, when should I do the advanced? When should I do the advanced? And I always say, give it a year at least, and try and work with about 50 people to 100 people. Because if not, it's just going to be sort of a waste of time in a way. You know, there's a big leap between the practitioner and the advanced practitioner. And this is why I want to do these kind of demonstrations to kind of show a bit of a bridge between the two. But yeah, I think it's because people have come from the NLP world where you can go from nothing to master practitioner in like a week and not actually work with anyone. You know, you just get a certificate.
Yeah, it's not about certificates, it's about practice more. It's all about understanding how it works.
Oh, absolutely. And with IEMT, you've got to do the practice, because if not, it's not going to make any sense.
One interesting story that happened with me, I was working once with a client. Whenever she put her head on the pillow, she used to hear soldiers marching. And then I asked her about that. So how strong is it over 10? At that point, I had just watched the videos. I only knew the prac stuff. How strong is it over 10? How familiar was the first time? And then we did the regular kinesthetic pattern, and it went down. And then we did the identity pattern. Okay, so when you think soldiers, where is soldiers? What's happening around soldiers? How old is soldiers? And we did the identity thing. And for her, it diminished, like spending a month and a half not being able to sleep and hearing these soldiers marching. Now it's more or less like tinnitus. So she noticed when it's happening like once every month, but she knows that she's being emotional about something and calms herself down in a way that works and it doesn't last. So this was one of the interesting stuff that happened with IEMT.
And I think this is it, what IEMT is endlessly fascinating, getting into all these different kind of uses and stuff for it. And I think what I've had more recently as well is people who do body work, like yoga teachers and chiropractors and physical manipulation type of work, and how that really ties in. Somebody's had some sort of accident, how they then see themselves as broken, they see them as a fate, and how that then ties in with the identity stuff. So it's not just the accident itself, it's what has done to that person, and also the people around them. So their partner has now become their carer as opposed to a partner. And so it does really go quite deep into all these things. But I think, I don't want people watching this and feeling overwhelmed. The most important thing to do is get Roni's book and go through and literally print it out and get a pen and just literally mark things and say, I can do this, I can do that. And remember with IEMT, you don't necessarily have to do it in a particular sequence. You can work on something and then see what it's like. And then you can work on it again, or you can work on something else. It's more like jazz as opposed to a 3-minute pop song. I don't know where I'm going with that, but you know what I mean? You don't have to do it in a very linear process. And it's all to do with the calibration and seeing how the client is, as opposed to trying to achieve an outcome.
One of the most fascinating things I've been experimenting with recently is the pain aspect and the IBS aspect, the irritable bowel syndrome, and the psoriasis aspect, which is amazing to watch. But I think this is another discussion for a completely different day.
Oh, absolutely.
Much more
I think
different.
John is actually John Moore. He's on here watching, I think. And guys, if you haven't seen the work that John's been doing with psoriasis,
fascinating.
It's really interesting. He's had it published in a peer-reviewed journal. John, if you are in here, put the link into the comments for this as well, okay? And I'll get John on at some point as well to do one of these.
Absolutely mind-blowing. Like it's.
I think there's no more slides. No, that's it. In fact, there's the that's your pronoun jump.
It's either on the IEMT forum or on the link that I posted in the chat.
And so let me, just before we sort of finish this, you sort of call it an IEMT pronoun jump. And what does it you specifically mean by pronoun jump? Is it going between the I, me, self, you, and different ones? Or
yes, it's when people, when they're expressing stuff and they jump from expressing things in a certain way to the other person, to the group. Like some people might express it like, we like this, or some people might, they're always dissociated from their actual experience, they're observers. One very interesting aspect that people could notice from these cases is when people are being active about their problems and when people are being passive about their problems. Like, I do this and I do this to myself and this is happening to me, which also practicing the active passive element is very, very useful.
And obviously that ties in very well into the effect and cause pattern of chronicity of basically when you get people who are complainers. You did this to me, this then happened, I don't like it, but this then happened and this then happened, so if you're getting people who are always saying about things that are happening to them, this is one, it's so they are not doing life, they're letting life happen to them. They're essentially, I call them like jellyfish. They're just floating around, they have no actual direction, they're just being taken where the current takes them, and they always complain where they are. And so this is by getting people to actually stand on their own 2 feet, realizing what they have actually done. So this is when I like to do the episodic time model, because I actually I've changed it a little bit from what happened to what did you then do. And it just brings people into sort of a more position of responsibility and power. I think power is the wrong word, but what they can take
Cause,
responsibility
from
for.
effect to cause.
Yeah, exactly. So you've done all this. Now what can you go and do? And the way that I work with clients, I like to get rid of all this stuff in the past before we make any kinds of goals. Because with therapies, people come to you and go, I want to do this. I want to lose weight. I want to stop smoking. I want to be confident. And say, well, you're in a really bad position to make a goal right now. What we need to do is explore the problem. Once we've explored the problem and sort of rectified these issues, we can then make some like a way forward rather than a specific thing, a way forward, and your goals will sort of align like that. I think weight is the most obvious example when people say, I want to lose 3 stone. Well, you can lose 3 stone in a very unhealthy way. You could get gastric bypass or whatever, you can, but if somebody is overweight, I would explore why that is, why they're allowing themselves to overeat, what are they doing it in response to? And then, generally, you don't need a personal trainer or a nutritionist to become healthy. People know going for McDonald's and stuff isn't good for you. And, meat and veg and stuff and low carb is generally a healthy way to live and not snacking and stuff. They know all this and they've got all the diet books. They're an absolute expert on the knowledge of it. It's just the application of it. And then, I don't know, I had a point, Yeah, I'm sure there's a point in there. But basically, I don't start to make any sort of outcomes and goals. I like to give people a direction to actually move in. And
One useful thing for people to read is the PRO model on the Clean Language website, which talks about when somebody is expressing if they're talking about a problem or they're looking for a remedy or they're looking for an outcome. And understanding these distinctions to choose what kind of work to do if they do IEMT or any of the other stuff that they're working with. So problem, remedy, outcome model, PRO model.
I like that. In fact, I'll watch this back and get that. I'll put that link in as well, actually. Guys, do we have any further questions at all? Because that is the end of the presentation, really. But does anybody have any questions about the identity work, anything that Roni's covered today at all? That's what it is. I'll stop the sharing for now, actually. So does anybody disagree about low carb being a healthy way to live? That's fine. The article, oh, great, I didn't see all these comments. Why don't I see these comments? Okay.
Are they all showed right now? Okay.
Yeah, I'm seeing them all now. I'll talk about this. Sonia, what? Sorry, I've just seen this now, Sonia, what do you want to talk about on the Q&A next month?
I think John mentioned 50% of the time, despite my best, I struggle to explain the pronouns and anything getting used to the client. Right. Okay. So when the client says whereabouts is I, take that as the answer, because it's how they're connecting with that specific experience. Some people, when you ask them, they directly understand or know where it is in their mental space. And some people's answers are like, what do you mean by that? And when you move to the other question, and how old is it, whatever pronoun jump, they're just like, I really want to know what you mean. And they might get into the 3-stage app reaction over there, where we can start working with that. So once it's explained by like giving specific several examples, it should be fairly easy, but that could trigger some pattern of chronicity with that.
Okay, got a couple of questions. First of all, if you haven't read this yet, there's a delay. It's weird having this delay. Sonia's book is here. You can't have that one, that's mine. Brilliant read, goes through like all the practitioner level stuff. Very, very good. I think you can get that from, well, Sonia's here.
It's on Amazon.
Message her. It's on Amazon, you can get it from her website as well. Sally's asked a question here. Now, I get this all the time, right? I have a client who I'm working with for weight loss. What would you suggest in general? And the thing is, it's very hard to say, because unless you have all the information, it's very hard to give advice. Now, I have worked with quite a few people with weight loss, and I don't really advertise as the fact, because I think weight, is a symptom of other stuff as opposed to the direct thing. And what I have found is that I've worked with people who've lost a lot of weight. They're quite upset that they don't feel any better, and they go back to what they were. And it's a very well-trodden path. So some people can lose 100 pounds again and again and again, and and it's not until they get some sort of surgery which physically restricts their eating. And if you're thinking about that, it's a very weird thing. You've actually got to get surgery. But I've even seen people who've had like their mouths wired shut and all this kind of stuff just to stop them actually eating. So when I'm working with somebody for weight loss, I always have the leading question of, what's the problem? What's the problem? And you basically work from there. So what's the problem? Look at the information which they're putting to you, and basically like the stuff that Ronnie's been doing today, looking through, looking for the pronouns, looking for the work. And I would then work from there. Ronnie, how about yourself? What would you tackle? How would you tackle that?
When it comes to weight, it's
Yeah.
very client specific.
Yeah.
It depends on what's actually the problem that's going on with them and what's the underlying issue. Like it could be anything else related to that. So working with the emotions that are present there, any identity markers, and seeing if they actually need some training in like planning something, or maybe they don't have the skills to cook, just knowing what to address and how to start changing stuff on like step-by-step basis. So metaphors of movement could also be useful with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Lizette, I think it's pronounced, after such a story, you will have to take one phrase to work on, or do you work with the whole story? Do you want to take that, Ronnie?
After such a story, you will have to take one phrase to work with, or do you work with the whole story? So I could ask the question of, okay, so you've told me all of that. What's the problem? What do you want from me? Which could specify specifically what we want to start with. Or we can pick up one of the emotions that are present there on a scale of 1 to 10. How strong is it? How familiar, etc., etc. And then explain the identity bits and say, okay, so I think this is something that might be worth exploring. Let's see, when you think of this, where is this? How old is this? What's happening around it? Do you think this is something that's okay? You want to calibrate it, etc. And so it's not just about one sense. This is like a snapshot of what's actually happening in the full session, because it's interactive, stuff are coming up, emotions are changing, stuff is shifting. And since we're not looking just for kinesthetic change, we're looking for changing the imprints, how people like adapt with life and feed forward. It's more of just taking it step by step instead of just focusing, okay, so I found this is what I need to work on. It's more of like being more curious and just engaging the client in their actual process of change.
Mm. And I think what's really important as well is that IEMT is outcome free. It's an exploration of the problem and their patterns of kinesthetic
Yes.
they're living by. And basically, the whole sort of aim really is to help them realize how they're living. And so they can actually make better choices.
Exactly.
So they can actually make better choices. And this is why I don't like outcome-based therapy or a well-defined outcome, something, because their well-defined outcome, especially for you doing your work, might not be the best thing for them. And once they get that outcome, then what?
Exactly.
John's putting some good links here as well. Does anybody else have any questions? I think just having, God, all these things. I think I'm going to start using StreamYard, Sonia's putting the links there. John's putting the links to his articles. There's the link to your workbook as well, Ronnie. Negative feedback systems controls our metabolisms. Yeah, and also obviously with weight as well, stress is a huge factor of the body's ability to sort of burn fat, and also why it stores fat, and also it feeds into massively to sleep. So if you're not sleeping very well, you're constantly stressed with high levels of cortisol, and you're eating high sugary, high carb kind of based foods, processed foods to kind of feel better, and drinking, you're going to store lots and lots of weight. So I always look around. So I always never see the extra weight as the problem. I see what we're trying to determine why the person can't control their eating habits.
I think one very useful training for that is Andy's Slimming in My Attic, which they can find online. It's very useful. It has elements of IEMT, elements of other stuff that they can check there. So this is also useful.
Yeah, and Sonia, so does a person's microbiome. I actually was watching an interesting thing about this recently. And when you see famous people, you want to touch them. It's because on an unconscious level, you want their microbiome, you want a bit of them. And that's why when Elvis used to throw his towels into the audience, people used to go crazy for it. It's got his sweat on it. And I don't know why I'm talking about this, but people's microbiome really is, because you can give two people the same diet from different parts of the world, and one person will lose weight and one person won't lose or gain weight. Is that on YouTube, Roni, and these videos?
It's a website. Just go to slimminginmyattic.com, and it's a small training, like a 7-8 hour training. You can check it out there.
And I'm sure if you ever get lost in this, if you can just email Andy. He's not on social media and stuff anymore if you can't find it. I watched it a long time. He's got a few. He's got one on PTSD as well, and metaphors and all that jazz. Any other questions? Because I'm aware of time. We're coming up to 1 o'clock. And so anybody have any more questions at all about the identity work specifically, or just IEMT? We've got other trainers and this is what I love about IEMT, is that we have, you're a trainer, we've got Sonia here, we've got John, I think we've got some other, and it's a very sort of collaborative community. It's not I know some people are very sort of competitive in other trainings of other types of trainings, but I really found that, IEMT is a very collaborative community. Hey, John. So, John,
thanks, John.
I would love to do a chat with yourself in the near future about your work with psoriasis, because I find that fascinating. Sonia, I'm sure I'll have another interview, because I did it wasn't a stream actually, it was just a recorded thing, but I'm sure I'll be speaking to Sonia again in the near future. Any other questions at all? Any other questions about IEMT? Or you can ask anything about my private life. You can try asking Roni. I don't know if he's going to answer any of that kind of stuff.
Unlikely.
Any other questions before we wrap up for today? Some people have been asking, my training this weekend is totally sold out, unfortunately. No, not unfortunately, it's great. But if people, if you want to do, we all cover the same stuff. We just kind of do it in, a different angle. But, I haven't got my future trainings online as of yet. You can go to the IEMT Association website for all the future trainings. I usually put mine in here, and I usually have, Agatha, we've got some people who are actually coming on my training this weekend, which is great. I'm going to be doing more of these, especially for the people who do my training as well. I'm going to be doing like some masterclasses and some supervision and practice sessions with people. Roni, just want to say a massive thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Matt. Thank you so much.
It's been really fascinating, and I hope that this has really kind of shown people, what you can use IEMT for, how versatile it is, and also how it can be combined with other therapy types as well. So IEMT is not a panacea. It works on a lot of stuff a lot of the time, but it's really interesting to bring some of the stuff in. Oh, hey, yes. Robert, IEMT part. Sonia, when's your next IEMT party, please? If you want to put a link to it, that's cool. Robert Smith. Robert did my training obviously last year at some point. Robert, how's the IEMT been going? Oh, and anybody who's using IEMT, if you want to say how IEMT's been going yourself, please do chime in. We've just got a couple of minutes left. So any sort of clients you've sort of worked with, any kind of results you've sort of generated, or any questions, please just chime in. I know there's a bit of a delay on here. I've got several screens kind of going on right now. Yeah, so guys, so Sonia does the IEMT parties where she often has guests. I need to get along to this.
It's like 20-second delay. So
Okay. I think we are about done.
mhm.
So thank you. We've had quite a lot of people on. We've had like 16 people on for like the whole hour as well, which has been great.
Good sign.
Oh, invalid. Sonia, I don't know if that's a correct link you put there. It says it's okay.
Thank you so much
Robert
again, Matt.
Smith, excellent. By far the most useful thing I have learned in a long time. Excelente. Really good. Really good. All right. Well, thank you very much, Ronnie. Guys, thank you very much for joining us. Yeah, if you want to thank Ronnie, please do. Send him flowers, send him chocolates, send him whatever, you know. Send him your microbiome. That's what we really want. Enjoy the rest of your day, Ronnie. And guys, thank you so much. I'll see those.
Thanks everyone for joining
in this weekend. And I'm going to end this now. So take care and enjoy your lives.
Bye-bye.